Sourdough Masterclass tips and tricks. Let's talk about freezing your starter. Um, you've probably heard me say by now that it's a good idea to create a backup, okay, for long term. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, is with a frozen starter. Yes, you can freeze your starter, but there are a couple things that you must know and must do in order to be successful with freezing your starter. So let's jump right on in. The first thing is you need a mature starter. That's one that's been doubling in size and very active for at least 30 days. Okay, we want our starter to be mature because an immature starter is going to have trouble freezing and then reconstituting. Whereas a mature starter, at least 30 days, okay, is going to come back even easier. Now, the older it is, the better it will do to freeze and then reconstitute. So, how do we do it? What's the process? It's simple. It really, really is. You get an empty jar with a lid, okay? Can't forget your lid. With a lid. And we're going to feed our starter. So here, I've got one right here. I'm going to take 20 grams of starter and I'm going to feed it on a 1:1:1 ratio. So 20 grams of starter, 20 grams of water, 20 grams of flour. Whatever your flour of choice is, doesn't really matter. Okay, whatever you're used to feeding your starter with, that's what you feed it with to freeze it. You feed the starter, you cover it down tightly. It's got to be tight. The lid has to be on tightly. I know very often with our starters that we leave on the counter, we don't want a tight lid. In the fridge or the freezer, we must have a tight lid. Okay, so once we fed it, we put it in the freezer right away. Feed, then freeze. Say it with me. Feed, then freeze. Don't feed it and leave it out for an hour or two or half a day or anything like that and then put it in the freezer. Feed, then freeze right away. Okay? We're going to freeze it. You're going to stick it in the freezer and it can stay in your freezer, honestly, guys, indefinitely. Okay? And if you've got a deep freezer like I do, even better. Stick it in there. It will go all the way down to, what do they call that? The cryogenic state. I don't know if that's actually something you can do in a regular home freezer. But anyway, my point is you want to freeze it right away. Okay? And then you'll be able to reconstitute it whenever you need it. All right? To reconstitute very quickly, you're going to take it out of the freezer and put it in the fridge for 24 hours. Now it's got food in there, so as it starts to come back to temperature, that and the yeast start to get active, they'll have food to eat. That's why we fed and then froze. After 24 hours, you're going to take it out of the fridge. If it is still frozen, you're going to leave it out of the fridge probably for about a half a day. Okay, so we're going to leave it out of the fridge for half a day, and then we're going to feed it again. And after that, for 3 days, we're going to feed it twice a day for 3 days. Feed it twice a day for 3 days. Whatever your normal feeding schedule is, you're going to feed it twice a day for 3 days. After 3 days, your starter should have been reconstituted. It should be strong. It should be doubling every time you feed it. Okay? And you should be ready to bake again. So that's the process of feeding your starter and freezing it, so that you can create a backup and then how you reconstitute it. All right, guys, remember, we feed and freeze, but only a mature starter that's been doubling for at least 30 days. All right, talk to you soon.